morning, everyone. We are the Group 3. Our topic is about the diseases in cardiovascular system. The circulatory system or cardiovascular system pumps blood from the heart to the lungs to get oxygen. The heart then sends oxygenated blood through arteries to the rest of the body. Let us discuss to you what are those common diseases in cardiovascular system. Most bacterial cardiac infections manifest as endocarditis. Bacteremia from any pathogen can result in cardiac abscess. Usual pathogens include Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, Meningococcus, Salmonella, Campylobacter, Brucellosis, Tularemia, and Bartonella. The first one that I will discuss to you is endocarditis. Endocarditis is an inflammation of the inside lining of the heart chambers and heart valves, which is the endocardium. It is caused by a bacterial or rarely a fungal infection. There are two types of endocarditis. The first one is infective and the second one is non-infective endocarditis. But I will only discuss to you the infective endocarditis. So infective endocarditis happens when the heart starts growing mold or aka bacterial vegetation on the valves inside the heart itself. Medical definition of endocarditis. Endo means internal, cardio means heart, and itis means inflammation. So when we put it together, inflammation of the inner lining of the heart, mainly the chambers and the valve. And now, let us go to the structure of pathogen. The most common type is tested in infective endocarditis, which is caused by bacteria and fungi. Now, the most common infections is the double S, the staph and the strep infection. Staph is the number one offender here, but also strep throat infections. It is the kind that everyone gets in the throat every single year. If you don't treat those with antibiotics, the strep infection can get into the bloodstream and cause endocarditis. This is the reported cases of endocarditis. Infectious endocarditis is a rare condition with an estimatedly yearly incidence of 3 to 10 cases per 100,000 people. Historically, this disease process has demonstrated a predilection for males with a male to female ratio of nearly 2 to 1. The average age of infectious endocarditis patients is now greater than 65 years old. So, how endocarditis transmitted? Endocarditis begins when germs enter the bloodstream and then travel to the heart. Bacterial infection is the common cause of endocarditis. It can also caused by fungi such as Candida. Now, infective endocarditis is not only caused by throat infections. This strep and staph infection can also enter the bloodstream from many other ports of entry either from dirty needles or even dental procedure. So, how can a person have this disease? Endocarditis is usually caused by an infection. Bacteria, fungi, or other germs get into bloodstream. These are some symptoms of endocarditis. A high temperature, chills, night sweats, headaches, shortness of breath, especially during physical activity, cough, tiredness or fatigue, and muscle and joint pain. When it comes to diagnosis, blood tests may be used to help diagnose endocarditis or identify effective treatment. Complete blood count, echocardiogram, electrocardiogram, chest x-ray, magnetic resonance imaging or MRI. What are the treatment and prevention of this disease? Many people with endocarditis are successfully treated with antibiotics. Sometimes, Surgery may be needed to fix or replace damaged heart valves and clean up any remaining signs of the infection. The type of medication you receive depends on what causing the endocarditis. High doses of antibiotics are used to treat endocarditis caused by bacteria. If you receive antibiotics, you will generally spend a week or more in the hospital so that the care providers can determine if the treatment is working. Before and after the result, treatment includes several weeks of antibiotics or other medical, sometimes surgery. With quick, aggressive treatment, many people survive. Without treatment, endocarditis can be fatal. There is an available vaccination in endocarditis. 2 weeks of penicillin G or ceftriaxone and gentamicin, only for non-complicated MVE and normal renal function. 4 weeks of penicillin G or ceftriaxone or amoxicillin, ESC only. 4 weeks of vancomycin if PCN and unable to sensitize. The next one that I will discuss to you is about myocarditis. Myocarditis is inflammation of your heart muscle. This can be caused by viral infections or inflammatory conditions. So myo means muscle, cards means heart, and itis means inflammation. Myocarditis is inflammation of the myocardium, which is the muscular middle layer of the heart wall, which contracts and relaxes so the heart can pump all around the body. In North America, viral infections, specifically Coxsackie virus B infections, are the main cause of myocarditis viral infections. It can trigger lymphocytic myocarditis, which is when lymphocytes, the B and T cells of the immune system and water can make their way into the interstitial space, the space between heart and muscle cells. However, there are plenty of other infection causes as well. One of these are Legionella, gram-negative, slender rods, unencapsulated, aerobic, and fastidious. The second one is Salmonella, circular, low convex, smooth, translucent, and colorless due to the absence of lactose. The third one is Shigella, gram-negative, non-spore forming, and non-motile bacteria. The last one is Clostridium, gram-positive rods, produce endospores. Most are catalase negative and oxidate negative. Cases of myocarditis disease. A small number of patients develop inflammation leading to myocarditis after the messenger RNA. COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. While there were cases of myocarditis in all age groups between 12 to 50, the majority of cases are concentrated in the 16 to 28 age group. So, how myocarditis transmitted? Myocarditis occurs when the heart muscle or the myocardium becomes inflamed. It can be caused by viral infections or more systematic inflammatory conditions such as autoimmune disorders. Now, let's proceed to the causes of myocarditis. Myocarditis is rare, but when it occurs, it is most commonly caused by an infection in the body. Inflammation in the myocardium layer causes swelling and that damages the heart muscle cells' ability to contract. That means less blood gets pumped out of the heart with each heartbeat, and if myocarditis is severe enough, it can lead to heart failure, which the heart can keep up with demands of the body. These are the symptoms of individuals with myocarditis. He or she can feel chest pain, fatigue, swelling of legs, ankles, and feet, rapid or irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath at rest or during activity, light headaches or feeling like you might faint, flu-like symptoms such as headache, body aches, joint pain, fever, or sore throat. When it comes to diagnosis, a heart care provider will typically examine you and listen to your heart with a stethoscope. Blood and imaging tests may be done to check your heart health. Imaging tests can help confirm myocarditis and determine its severity. Now, when it comes to treatment and prevention of myocarditis, the treatment of myocarditis depends of underlying cause. Viral myocarditis just usually improve over time, and other infections are treated with appropriate antibiotics. Beta blockers improve arrhythmias and help with remodeling of the heart muscles. Diuretics help decrease fluid congestion in the body, which can occur when the heart muscles weakens. Corticosteroids reduce inflammation in the body, reserved for specific causes of myocarditis. Before and after the result, the patient must rest, and reducing the strain on the heart is an important part of myocarditis recovery. When it comes to available vaccination, if patient is diagnosed with myocarditis prior to vaccination, PFDA-approved age-appropriate COVID-19 vaccine may be administered if the heart condition is stable, as assessed by a pediatric cardiologist.
Pericarditis is an inflammatory condition that affects the pericardium, which is the sac-like membrane surrounding the heart. The pericardium has two layers, the outer fibrous layer and the inner serous layer. Pericarditis occurs when the pericardium becomes inflamed or pamamaga ng pericardium, leading to chest pain and other symptoms. In viral infection, there are two viruses that is involved. Number one is the Coxsackie virus. It is a small, non-enveloped, single-stranded RNA virus with an icosahedral capsid. When we say icosahedral capsid, it refers to the protein shell that encloses and protects the viral genetic material, either RNA or DNA. Next one is the adenoviruses. It is a non-enveloped double-stranded DNA viruses with icosahedral symmetry. Their structure consists of a protein capsid that surrounds the viral genome. In bacterial infection naman, there are two bacteria that is involved. Number one is the Streptococcus pneumoniae. It is characterized by its spherical shape and a thick polysaccharide capsule that surrounds the bacterium. This capsule helps protect the bacterium from the immune system and contribute to its virulence. Next one is the Staphylococcus aureus. It is characterized by its spherical shape and the formation of clusters or grape-like clusters. It has a thick cell made of peptidoglycan, which provides structural support and protection. Next one is the fungal infection. One is the Candida species. It is a yeast-like fungi that typically exists as oval-shaped cell or pseudohyphae or elongated cells under certain conditions. Next one is the Aspergillus species. Are filamentous fungi characterized by their septate hyphae or long branching filaments. According to the National Library of Medicine case report, they presented pericarditis as the primary presentation of COVID-19 among a young, healthy individual with no medical background in the absence of conventional respiratory signs. The diagnosis was based on a set of clinical, biological, radiological, and electrocardiographic findings. In this case, the treatment was based on the use of colchicine in addition to COVID-19 treatment. The outcome was favorable, with a noticeable regression of symptoms and the disappearance of pericardial effusion within 2 weeks. The mode of transmission of pericarditis depends on the specific pathogen involved. In viral pericarditis, it is often transmitted through respiratory droplets or direct contact with infected individuals. In bacterial pericarditis, it may result from the spread of bacteria from another site of infection such as pneumonia or a skin wound or through blood-borne transmission. On the other hand, in fungal pericarditis typically occurs through inhalation of fungal spores or dissemination from another infected site in the body. There are three main causes of pericarditis. The viral infection are the most common cause of pericarditis. The bacterial infection, although it is less common, it can also cause pericarditis. Then the last one is the fungi. It is a rare and typically occurs in individuals with compromised immune systems. The following are the symptoms of pericarditis. Number 1 is chest pain. The sharp, stabbing chest pain that worsens with deep breathing or lying down and improves when sitting up or leaning forward. Next one is fever. Elevated body temperature, often indicating an active infection. Next is the difficulty in breathing. Shortness of breath, especially with exertion or when lying flat, or orthopnea. Next one is fatigue. Feeling tired or lethargic, which may be accompanied by weakness. The last one is rapid heartbeat or tachycardia. The increased heart rate sometimes accompanied by palpitations. Diagnosis for pericarditis. Number 1 is physical exam. They will perform a physical examination, listening for pericardial friction rubs, and assessing other signs of pericardial inflammation. Next one is the chest x-ray, which shows the shape of your heart and possible excess fluid. Next is the electrocardiogram or ECG to check on your heart rhythm. Next is the echocardiogram, which assess the shape and size of your heart and whether there's fluid collection. Next one is the CT scan and MRI scans, which give a detailed view of your pericardium. And the last one is the blood test to look for markers of inflammation. Treatment for pericarditis. In medication, doctor may prescribe over-the-counter non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for pain and inflammation, such like the ibuprofen or the indomethacin. Next one is the colchicine, which it reduces inflammation and prevent recurrent episodes of pericarditis. Next one is the corticosteroids. In cases of severe or refractory pericarditis, corticosteroids such as prednisone may be prescribed to suppress inflammation. In surgery, pericardectomy, the removal of pericardium. Next is the pericardiocentesis, the medical procedure in which a needle or catheter is inserted into the pericardial sac to remove fluid or perform other interventions. It is primarily performed to drain excess fluid or the pericardial effusion that has accumulated in the pericardial space. Preventing pericarditis caused by pathogens involve vaccination against common infectious agents, practicing good hygiene to reduce the risk of contracting infections. Early detection and prompt treatment of infections can also help to prevent pericarditis complications. Before treatment, individuals with pericarditis may experience symptoms such as chest pain, difficulty breathing, rapid heartbeat, and fatigue. These symptoms can vary in intensity and duration. The pericardium is inflamed, which can cause friction between the layers of the pericardium, leading to chest pain and other symptoms. After treatment, The symptoms of pericarditis can improve or resolve completely. Chest pain may subside, breathing difficulties may improve, and the heart rate may return to normal. Treatment aims to reduce inflammation in the pericardium. As the inflammation subsides, the layers of the pericardium can glide smoothly, reducing friction and discomfort. Over time, the pericardium can heal and return to its normal function. The severity and duration of pericarditis can influence the healing process. There is currently no specific vaccination available solely for the prevention of pericarditis. However, there are vaccinations available for certain infections that can lead to pericarditis as a complication. This vaccination can help reduce the risk of developing the underlying infections and subsequently lower the chances of pericarditis. These are the examples of vaccine that can indirectly contribute to the prevention of pericarditis by reducing the risk of associated infections. Number 1 is the pneumococcal vaccine. The pneumococcal vaccine is primarily designed to protect against infections caused by the Streptococcus pneumoniae bacteria, particularly pneumonia and meningitis. While the pneumococcal vaccine doesn't directly target pericarditis, it can indirectly help prevent certain complications associated with pneumococcal infections that could lead to pericarditis. Next one is the influenza vaccine. The influenza vaccine is not specifically indicated for the treatment of pericarditis. However, getting vaccinated against influenza can indirectly help prevent certain complications associated with viral infections, including pericarditis. Pericarditis can sometimes develop as a complication of viral respiratory infections, including influenza. By receiving the influenza vaccine, you can reduce your risk of contracting the flu virus, thereby lowering the likelihood of developing influenza-related complications, including pericarditis. So, let's proceed to the Lyme carditis, which is Lyme carditis is a rare complication of Lyme disease caused by the bacterium Borrelia burgdorferi that is transmitted through the bite of infected ticks. It affects the heart, causing symptoms like heart block, palpitations, and fainting. If untreated, it can lead to serious cardiac issues. Borrelia burgdorferi is a spirochete bacterium, which means it is characterized by its spiral helical shape. Its structure features a long, slender, helical shape with flagella, which enable it to move efficiently through various tissues. The bacterium's outer membrane contains lipoproteins, which means lipoprotein is composed both lipids and proteins that interact with the host's immune system, contributing to the disease's pathogenesis. It's not easy to find a case for Lyme carditis because it's a rare complication of Lyme disease. But I was able to find a reported case about this disease. According to one case report, it describes a 17-year-old male who died unexpectedly from fulminant Lyme carditis. The post-mortem examination revealed diffuse pancarditis with extensive lymphocyte infiltrates and focal interstitial fibrosis. The primary mode of transmission of the Lyme carditis is through the bite of infected ticks. Ticks become infected with the bacterium when they feed on infected animals such as the mice, birds, or deer. When an infected tick bites a human, the bacteria can be transmitted. As I mentioned a while ago, Lyme carditis is caused by the bacterium Borrelia burgdorferi, which is transmitted through the bite of infected black-legged ticks, which is the Ixodes scapularis or the Ixodes pacificus. These ticks are often found in wooded and grassy areas, where they attach to hosts such as deer, rodents, birds, and occasionally humans to feed on their blood. The symptoms of Lyme carditis are the following. First and foremost, the heart-related symptoms. Lyme carditis can cause various heart-related symptoms including the heart palpitation or the rapid or irregular heartbeat. Next one is the chest pain or discomfort, the shortness of breath, fainting or lightheadedness, fatigue, swelling in the legs or ankle for rare cases. Other Lyme disease symptoms. Patients with Lyme carditis may also experience symptoms associated with Lyme disease itself, such as the fever, body aches, headaches, and the joint pain. Diagnosis of Lyme carditis are the following. Number 1 is the medical history and physical examination. The doctor will evaluate your medical history, including any recent exposure to ticks or outdoor activities. They will also perform a physical examination to check for signs of heart-related symptoms. Next one is the laboratory testing. Blood tests. Blood samples can be tested for the presence of antibodies against Borrelia burgdorferi. These tests include enzyme immunoassays and Western blot tests. Next one is the electrocardiogram or ECG. This test records the electrical activity of the heart and can help identify any abnormal heart rhythms or conduction abnormalities. Next one is the echocardiogram. This imaging test uses sound waves to create detailed images of the heart. It can help evaluate the structure and function of the heart and detect any abnormalities. Treatment of Lyme carditis. Antibiotic therapy. Lyme carditis is treated with antibiotics to eliminate the underlying infection. The choice of antibiotics and duration of treatment may vary depending on the severity of the condition. Intravenous antibiotics such as ceftriaxone or penicillin are commonly used for more severe cases. On milder cases, oral antibiotics are prescribed, such as doxycycline or the amoxicillin. Prevention for Lyme carditis. Number 1 is tick avoidance. Avoid areas with high tick population, such as wooded and grassy areas, particularly during peak tick activity seasons. Number 2 is wear protective clothing. When in tick-prone areas, wear long-sleeved shirt, long pants, and closed-toe shoes. Number 3 is use insect repellents. Apply insect repellents containing DEET, picaridin, or permethrin to exposed skin and clothing to repel ticks. Lastly is you need to educate yourself. Learn about the signs and symptoms of Lyme disease, including Lyme carditis, and you need also to seek medical attention if you develop any concerning symptoms. Before and after result. Before treatments, symptoms of Lyme carditis can include heart palpitations, chest pain, and shortness of breath due to inflammation of the heart muscle and conduction system. After the treatment with prompt antibiotic treatment, symptoms typically improve rapidly, and cardiac function usually returns to normal within weeks. Early diagnosis and treatment are key to preventing serious complications. As of the moment, there is currently no available vaccine specifically for Lyme disease or Lyme carditis.
Okay, so good morning to each and every one of us. So let's move on naman sa ating streptococcal septicemia. So yung streptococcal septicemia is a severe infection caused by streptococcus bacteria entering our bloodstream. So yung streptococcal septicemia is yun yung pangalan ng disease. And yung streptococcus bacteria is yun yung nagkakos sa atin para magkaroon tayo ng streptococcal septicemia. So streptococcal species are commonly found in our throat and or in our skin. So while they are typically harmless in this location, they can cause severe infections if they enter our bloodstream. So yung Streptococcus daw na bacteria is hindi pa siya harmful if nasa skin or nasa throat pa lang natin siya. So once they enter our bloodstream is dun na pwede siyang mag-cause ng very severe infections. So, yung Streptococcus bacteria is they can live in and out sa ating body. Okay, so dito naman sa structure of pathogens ng ating Streptococcus bacteria is, yung isang circle po na to is isang part lang po siya sa ating Streptococcus na bacteria. So, yung ating Streptococcus bacteria is, alam nating chain siya. So, yung isang bilog po na to is just a part ng Streptococcus bacteria. So, pag titignan po natin yung Streptococcus bacteria is a chain po siya. So, bilog, bilog, and bilog. Okay? So, yung isang bilog na yon is consisting siya of, may capsule siya, meron siyang cell wall, meron din siyang plasma membrane, also may M protein siya. As you can see dito, is may lipoic acid also siya, may envasin, and merong exotoxins. Okay, so let's move on naman sa ating reported cases up to date. So, each year daw is meron tayong 600 million na katao na natatamaan ng strep throat. So, many of them are children. So, strep throat is easily treated daw siya with antibiotics. Since antibiotics targets a specific bacteria sa ating katawan. Okay? So, however, undiagnosed or untreated strep throat can have serious complications such as acute rheumatic fever and a major cause of acquired heart disease sa mga young adults. Alright? So here, we have also the transmission. So, open wounds or injuries. So, alam naman natin to, pag na-injury ka or you have a wound, syempre, open yung wound na yun and that's the time na pwedeng pumasok yung Streptococcus bacteria sa ating wound. Also, surgical sites. Wait lang, ano ba ang magandang example dito? So, kunwari, buntis, and nagpa-cesarean siya. Since, natahi na yung ating cesarean sa babae, is hindi yun automatically or hindi yun instantly na mag-heal. So, it takes time. So, may parang wound din siya. So, parang open wound din siya. So, that's open siya sa Streptococcus bacteria. Pwedeng makapasok doon. And also, we have the dental procedure. So, alam naman natin yung dental procedure, di ba? Ito yung pagpapa-dentist or pagpapabunot ng ngipin, pagpapapasta, and more. Okay, sa respiratory infections naman. So, example, sa ating pneumonia or sa main topic natin which is the strep throat. Okay, so we have also the skin infection, yung pagre-red ng ating skin or pangangate and nagkukos siya ng bukol-bukol sa ating skin na nagre-red. Dito naman is we have causes. So, weakened immune system. Since mahina ang ating immune system is hindi yun enough para ma-eliminate niya yung Streptococcus bacteria na nakapasok sa ating katawan. So that will also cause streptococcal septicemia. Sa chronic disease naman, so we have diabetes for example. So since we have diabetes is alam naman natin na pag nasugat tayo is mahirap yun mag-heal. So, since nasugat tayo is hindi siya mag-heal, so that's the time na magkakaroon ng infection sa ating skin. And yun yung magkukos ng isa sa ating streptococcal septicemia. Also, breathing in infected droplets from someone sneeze or cough. So, pag nag-sneeze yung kasama mo na may streptococcal septicemia, is pag na-inhale mo yon is pwede kang mahawa. So, pwede siyang airborne. Okay? So, giving birth, where it can spread from mother to baby. So, pag po pinanganak yung baby na may streptococcal septicemia yung kanyang mother, is pwedeng transmit yung disease sa kanyang anak. So, pwede siyang like genetics or inheritance, right? So, sa skin injuries or skin infection. So, na-mention ko to kanina sa ating transmission. Pag may sugat tayo or may sugat tayo or may wound, is magkakaroon ng infection which leads to streptococcal septicemia. Okay, so we have also the symptoms and diagnosis. So, sa fever and chills, so, we all know the fevers is yung mataas yung ating temperature. So, sa rapid heart rate naman, so mabilis yung pagtibok ng heart natin. Also, sa rapid breathing, mabilis yung paghinga natin. Also, sa hypotension. So, hindi mabilis yung circulation ng dugo natin or lower siya sa normal na bilis ng pag-circulate ng ating dugo. Also, sa skin rash or redness of the skin. So, pag nangangati tayo and then nagre-red yung ating skin, so hindi lang siya sa part ng specific part ng ating skin or sa ating katawan, pero it can also anywhere around sa ating katawan. Okay, so sa diagnosis naman is, diagnosis typically involves blood cultures to identify the presence of Streptococcus bacteria in the bloodstream. So yung mga doctors is for example, magpapaswab tayo, is sa dugo natin, titignan kung may Streptococcal septicemia man tayo o wala. So, they can check our blood if we have Streptococcal septicemia. And also, other tests may be conducted to assess organ functions and determine the extent of the infection. So, since may Streptococcal septicemia tayo, is pwede niya kasing maapektuhan yung function ng ating organs. So, it may be, kunwari sa ating lungs, is mabagal yung ating paghinga sa ating dugo, is mababa yung pag-circulate ng ating dugo, and more. So here we have the treatment and prevention. So antibiotic therapy is to target the specific strain of Streptococcus bacteria. So taking antibiotics is one of the most effective para pang-eliminate sa Streptococcus bacteria na nakapasok sa ating katawan. Since it target the specific strain of Streptococcus bacteria sa ating katawan. So supportive care stabilize vital signs and manage complications. Also surgical intervention in severe cases. So ito yung preventive measures. So proper wound care or infection control practices. So pag nasugat tayo sa any part sa ating katawan, is we all know how to take care of that wound. So huhugasan natin, lalagyan natin ng iodine, and then or lalagyan natin ng alcohol. We wipe alcohol around the wound para hindi ma-prevent yung Streptococcus na makapasok sa ating katawan. Also, lalagyan natin siya ng cover or bandage para ma-prevent natin yung bacteria na pwedeng pumasok sa ating wound. From treatment of respiratory and skin infections, so alam natin paano i-treat yung ating respiratory pag meron nang nakapasok na Streptococcus bacteria. So pag i-sneeze yun nga yung sinasabi ko, pag nag-sneeze yung ating kasama na may strep throat, is we all know how to prevent the possible outcomes of the disease. So we have the prophylactic antibiotics for individuals at high risk of infection. So ito naman na kind ng antibiotic is more like mas malakas siya kaysa sa normal antibiotics na ating tinitake. Kasi sa sa prophylactic antibiotics is ito yung mas tinitake ng high risk of infection ng streptococcal septicemia. Okay, dito naman is we have the before and after results ng ating streptococcal septicemia. So when someone first develops streptococcus septicemia is they may initially experience symptoms that can resemble those of other infections. So these symptoms may include fever. So a sudden onset of fever, often with temperature exceeding 101 Fahrenheit or 38.3 degrees Celsius. So chills, intense shivering or feeling cold despite a fever. So parang nagko-contradict yung ating fevers and ating chills, pero kasi yun yung parang symptoms na din ng ating streptococcal septicemia. So we have the rapid heart rate. Ito yung mabilis na pagtibok ng ating puso. We have rapid breathing, which is I mentioned a while ago, yung pag-increase ng respiratory rate. Confusion. So mental confusion or altered mental status. Hindi masyadong maayos yung ating pag-iisip. Hindi tayo makafocus sa isang bagay na ating ginagawa. Fatigue. Ito yung profound tiredness or weakness. So nasuya or vomiting. Gastrointestinal symptoms may occur. Pagsusuka, ganon. Also, sa pain, or which we all know as sakit. Generalized body aches, or localized pain in areas where the infection may have originated, such as the throat sa ating, dito sa ating throat nga, or sa ating wound site, kung saan tayo nasugat, or saan pwedeng kung saan man pumasok yung ating streptococcal septicemia and doon na nag-cause ng infection. Dito naman is as the condition worsen or gets worse and the infection spreads throughout the body, symptoms may become more severe and additional complication may arise. And this includes hypotension. We all know the hypotension is a low blood pressure which can lead to dizziness, pagkahilo, pagkahimatay, or sa pag-confusion. Ganun. Okay, so we have the septic shock, a life-threatening condition characterized profound hypotension and multiple organ dysfunction. So dito, para ma-mention ng organ failure, yung septic shock. So dysfunction of organs such as the kidney, hindi pag-work ng maayos ng ating internal organs sa ating kidney, liver, lungs, or heart. So, due to the inadequate blood flow or the bacterial damage. So, disseminated intravascular coagulation, or mostly known as the DIC, is a disorder where blood is clotting. So, clotting. So, parang nagka-clot yung blood daw. So, mechanism is activated through the body, leading both bleeding and excessive clotting. So, pagka-clog ng ating dugo. So, hindi yun maka-flow kasi nag-clog nga yung ating mga veins that may cause sa ating disseminated or DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. Okay, so we have also the skin changes. We also know this as yung pag-red-red ng ating skin or pagbubukol-bukol. Okay, so sa septic embolic bacterial cluster may lead to skin lesion or discoloration. Yun nga, discoloration, pagre-red. Okay, so we have the respiratory distress. So difficulty or acute respiratory failure. And we have this altered mental status. So confusion or coma due to inadequate oxygen delivery to the brain. So pag hindi na susuplayan ng oxygen sa ating brain is pwede siyang mag-cause ng coma or yung pagkatulog natin na hindi tayo nagigising until we fully recover. Okay, so multi-organ dysfunction or syndrome, which is the mostly we call MODS or MODS. So, failure of multiple organ system often seen in severe sepsis cases. Okay, so sa available vaccination naman natin sa ating streptococcal septicemia. So currently, there is no vaccine specifically for streptococcal septicemia caused by Streptococcus bacteria. However, vaccines are available for some streptococcal infections, such as vaccine against Streptococcal pneumoniae, So we have the pneumococcal vaccine. So sa ating vaccine naman against sa group A, Streptococcus is still under development po siya. Okay, so let's move on naman sa ating Staphylococcus aureus. So yung ating Staphylococcus aureus is a bacterium commonly found sa ating skin and sa ating mucous membranes of humans and also sa animals. While it can be part of the normal flora without causing harm, it can also cause a range of infections, from mild skin infections to severe invasive diseases. Staphylococcus aureus is significant cause of both healthcare-associated and community-acquired infections worldwide po. Okay, we'll be moving on naman sa ating structure ng ating Staphylococcus aureus. So, yung Staphylococcus aureus natin is a gram-positive bacterium. So, pag titignan natin siya sa ating under the microscope, it will appear as a cluster of spherical cell under a microscope. Okay, so it possesses a thick peptidoglycan cell wall which give its characteristic a gram-positive staining as aureus can produce a variety of virulence factors, including toxins such as hemolysins and enterotoxins, and enzymes such as coagulase and protease, which contribute to its pathogenicity. Alright? So ito yung pagtitingnan natin sa model is meron siyang toxins. Also may hemoglobin and protein A, microcapsule, cell wall, plasma membrane, and also may envasing siya dito. Okay, so sa transmission naman is Staphylococcus aureus can be transmitted through direct contact to an infected individuals or contaminated surfaces. Modes of transmission includes, so ito, skin to skin contact. So pag may Staphylococcus aureus yung isang kasama mo and then suddenly natouch siya sa'yo, is pwede kang mahawa doon. Okay, so contact with contaminated object or surfaces. Kunwari, yung cellphone niya is ginamit-gamit niya. And then ginamit mo yung cellphone. So yung bacteria is pwede siyang mag-live sa phone. So pag pumunta na sa phone and then hinawakan mo is mapupunta sa'yo. Since yung bacteria na yun, hindi siya basta-basta mamamatay. Okay, so yun. Healthcare-associated transmission in the hospital or other healthcare settings. So alam naman natin pag sa hospital is doon yung pinakamadaming pinupunta yung mga may masakit, di ba? So doon prone ka sa any kind of diseases. So isa doon yung ating Staphylococcus aureus. Okay, so sa causes naman. So Staphylococcus aureus infection occurs when bacterium gains entry into the body through breaks in the skin or mucous membranes. Factors that increase the risk of infections include, so ito, skin injuries or wound. So, na-mention ko to kanina sa ating streptococcal septicemia is pag nasugat tayo, is pwede pumasok doon yung bacteria that may cause a Staphylococcus aureus. So, sa surgical processes. Also, pag buntis ka and then cesarean ka is pag natahi na yung sugat is prone pa din yon sa kahit anong bacteria. Since hindi yon instant mag-heal pag natahi na. Okay, so medical devices such as catheter or implant. So, yung mga ginagamit natin sa hospital. For example, yung mga catheters like that. So, pwedeng ma-transmit or yung germs doon or yung bacteria para mahawa ka. Okay, so sa weakened immune system naman. Pag mahina kasi yung immune system mo, is sabi ko nga nung una din is mas madali kang maano ng bacteria or mas madali kang mai-infect since mahina yung immune system mo, since yung immune system is yun yung pumapatay sa any bacteria na pumapasok sa ating katawan. Okay, so close contact to the infected individuals. Masyado kang malapit or masyado kang nakikipagsalita o malapitan sa tao na may sakit na Staphylococcus aureus. Pwede kang mahawa doon through airborne. At ito naman ang kanyang symptoms and diagnosis. So, localized redness, swelling, and tenderness of the site of the infections. So, redness. alam naman natin yon, yung pagre-red ng skin, swelling, yung pamamaga ng kung saan man tayo na-infect, also, and tenderness sa part kung saan tayo na-infect. Kunwari nasugat tayo and then magiging parang magbubukol yon, magiging tender siya. Okay? So, fevers and chills. Mataas yung temperatura ng katawan natin. Also sa chills, yung parang nilalamig tayo kahit masyadong mainit. So parang contradicting sila a little bit sa ating fever. Pero since symptoms kasi yung dalawang ito para sa ating Staphylococcus aureus. So sa symptoms, specific to affected organ system. So respiratory symptoms in pneumonia. For example, yung respiratory natin is masyado ng, let's say, parang hypotension. Kunwari sa hypotension is yung circulation ng blood natin is mahina. Sa respiratory naman natin is humihina yung paghinga natin or bumabagal. Since cause yun ng Staphylococcus aureus. Okay, so sa diagnosis naman is typically involves clinical evaluation of symptoms and medical history. So laboratory test. So including culture of and sensitivity of testing samples from infected sites. Imaging studies like X-ray, ultrasound for deep-seated invasive infection. Here also is we have the treatment and preventions. So antibiotic therapy. So tailored to specific strain and susceptibility of the bacteria. So surgical drainage or debridement of the abscesses or infected tissues. So supportive care to manage symptoms and complications. Also here we have the preventions. So preventive measures include proper hand hygiene and practices. So alam naman natin yung paano yung hygiene practices. So paghuhugas ng kamay, ganon, you know how to take care and clean yourself para hindi ka ma-infect ng any bacteria na possible bacteria na pumunta sa'yo. Okay, so wound care and infection controls measure in healthcare settings. Kunwari nasugat ka, alam mo paano mo i-cover, alam mo kung paano i-protect siya from any possible bacteria na pwede pumasok doon sa inyong wound. Avoiding sharing personal items like towels, razors. So alam naman natin yung bacteria is pwede siyang mapunta sa bagay and then pag ginamit yung bagay na yun ng ibang tao is pwedeng matransmit yung bacteria na yun or yung disease. Okay, so decolonization protocols for individuals colonized with MRAS. Okay, so we have here the before and after results. So localized infection symptoms, then infection is localized to a specific area such as the skin, like boil or abscess. Or a wound symptoms may include redness, pagre-red ng skin, warm, medyo warm yung feeling natin sa ating infected part kung saan yung injury natin or wound. Tenderness and pain at the site of the infection. So first, we have here the fever. So individuals with Staphylococcus aureus infections may develop a fever. So particularly, the infection is spreading or if it has become systematic. Okay, so alam naman, next naman natin is alam natin tong fatigue. So general feelings of tiredness or malaise can accompany an infection, especially if it is severe or the body is mounting an immune response. Okay, so meron pa yung systemic spread. So if the Staphylococcus aureus infection spreads beyond the initial site, symptoms can become more severe and systemic. Okay, so sa fever, alam natin yung na-mention ko na yung fever a while ago. The fever may become higher or more persistent as the infection progress. So chills, intense shivering, or feeling cold may occur, particularly if the body is trying to fight off the infection. Also, increased pain and swelling. The localized symptoms at the site of the infection may worsen with the increased pain, swelling, and tenderness. So, skin changes. In the cases of severe infection or certain strains of Staphylococcus aureus, skin symptoms may progress to include widespread redness, warmth, and even the development of deep open sores known as ulcer. So, yung Staphylococcus aureus naman is, alam natin is pwede siya palang mag-cause ng ulcer sa ating stomach. So, nausea and vomiting. So, some individuals may experience gastrointestinal symptoms such as nausea and vomiting or diarrhea, especially if the infection has become systemic. Hypotension. So, in severe cases, the infection can lead to low blood pressure, which may cause dizziness, lightheadedness, or fainting. So, confusion. Changes in mental status, confusion, or altered consciousness can occur in the cases of severe infections, particularly if the infection has spread to the bloodstream and it is affecting multiple organs. Okay, so ito naman sa ating available vaccination. Sad to say, currently there is no licensed vaccine specifically for Staphylococcus aureus infections. However, research into the vaccine development is ongoing na po, with several vaccines candidates in various stages of preclinical and clinical development.
Bacteremia is a kind of cardiovascular disease. Bacteremia is the presence of bacteria in the blood. Bacteria can enter the bloodstream as a severe complication of infections like pneumonia or meningitis. During the surgery, especially when involving mucous membranes such as the gastrointestinal tract or due to catheters and other foreign bodies entering the arteries or veins, including intravenous drug abuse. So, yung bacteremia ay pagkakaroon ng bacteria sa may blood. Yung bacteria is pwedeng pumasok sa blood, which is nagkakos ito ng infection. Structure of pathogen. Staphylococcus aureus is the most dangerous of all of many common staphylococcal bacteria. These gram-positive spear-shaped coccal bacteria often cause skin infections but can cause pneumonia, heart valve infections, and bone infections, and may be resistant to treatment with some antibiotics. Ang Staphylococcus aureus is the most dangerous na staphylococcal bacteria. Kadalasan nagiging cause ng mga infection sa skin na pwedeng mag-cause ng pneumonia, infection sa heart valve, infection sa bones, and pwedeng lumaban sa paggamot na may ilang mga antibiotics. Reported cases of a bacteremia. A total of 160 patients with CIED developed non-SAGPC bacteremia. CIED infection was present in 90 or 56.3% patients, in whom 60 or 37.5% were classified as definite and 30 or 18.8% as possible. This included 41 or 45.6% cases of coagulase negative Staphylococcus or CoNS. 30 or 33% of cases Enterococcus. 13 or 14.4% cases of Viridans group Streptococci or VGS, and 6.7% cases of other organisms. Transmission of bacteremia. Bacteria can enter the blood in different ways, including wounds, medical procedures, and even brushing or flossing your teeth too hard. Sa mga open wounds, pwedeng pumasok yung bacteria. Sa medical procedures, pwede ring may maka-enter na bacteria habang may surgery. Hindi rin pala okay yung grabe at sobra-sobrang pagbrush natin ng ating ngipin. Causes. Bacteremia may result from ordinary activities such as vigorous toothbrushing, dental or medical procedures, or from infections such as pneumonia or a urinary tract infection. So, symptoms of bacteremia: shaking, chills, or yung panginginig ng katawan, persistent fever, tuloy-tuloy na paglagnat, altered sensorium, pabago-bago yung nararamdaman, hypotension or low blood, gastrointestinal symptoms like abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Diagnosis of bacteremia. First is the blood test. Next is the urine test or urinalysis. Bacteria culture test. Ito yung test para ma-identify kung may bacterial infection sa katawan. Next is prevention. Dental procedures and surgical treatment of infected wounds. The before and after results. Before treatment, for bacteremia, patients may present the symptoms such as fever, chills, rapid heart rate, low blood pressure, confusion, and difficulty breathing. And after treatment naman, patients may experience resolution of symptoms and improve in clinical condition. Available vaccine: there is not a specific vaccine available for bacteremia itself, as bacteremia refers to the presence of bacteria in the bloodstream, which can arise from various infections throughout the body. Rheumatic heart disease is a kind of cardiovascular disease. Rheumatic heart disease is a condition where the heart valves have been permanently damaged by rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever is an inflammatory disease that can affect many connective tissues, especially in the heart. Untreated or undertreated strep infections put a person at increased risk. So, yung rheumatic heart disease is isa siyang heart condition kung saan yung heart valves is permanent nang na-damage dahil sa rheumatic fever. Yung rheumatic fever, isa siyang inflammatory disease na maapektuhan yung mga connective tissues, lalo na yung heart. Structure of pathogen. Streptococcus pyogenes is a major human-specific bacterial pathogen that causes a wide array of manifestation ranging from mild localized infections to life-threatening invasive infections. Streptococcus pyogenes is isang bacteria na mostly naapektuhan ang mga tao na nagiging cause ng iba't ibang mga infection. Reported cases of rheumatic heart disease has a worldwide prevalence of 33 million cases and 270,000 deaths annually, making it the most common acquired heart disease in the world. So next, the transmission of rheumatic heart disease starts as a sore throat from a bacterium called Streptococcus pyogenes, a group of Streptococcus, which can pass easily from person to person in the same way as other upper respiratory tract infections. Causes: heart valve inflammation from rheumatic fever causes rheumatic heart disease. The damage may occur right away, or it can develop over time from repeated strep infections. Continuing inflammation leads to heart valve scarring and narrowing. Symptoms and diagnosis: chest pain, sakit sa dibdib, fatigue kapag nakakaramdam ng pagod, heart murmur, yun yung sound na naririnig through a stethoscope when blood flows abnormally over the heart valves, shortness of breath, swelling in the stomach,
hands, or feet. RHD is usually diagnosed with an echocardiogram diagram, an ultrasound of the heart which can assess the heart valves and look for heart failure. Next naman sa treatment. Treatment depends in large part of how much damage has been done to the heart valves. In severe cases, treatment may include surgery to replace or fix a badly damaged valve. The best treatment is to prevent rheumatic fever. Antibiotics can often treat strep infections and keep rheumatic fever from occurring. Prevention of rheumatic heart disease can be prevented by preventing streptococcal infections or treating them with antibiotics when they do occur. Before and after results. Before treatment for rheumatic heart disease, patients may present with symptoms such as shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue, palpitations, and swollen ankles or feet. Then, after treatment, patients may experience improvement in symptoms and overall quality of life. Available vaccine. There is no currently vaccine especially for rheumatic heart disease.
Good day to each and everyone. My name is Althea Marie T. Burgos, and I will be the one to discuss the myocardial infarction. So first off, have you heard of myocardial infarction? Or are you familiar with it? Or do you have any idea what is myocardial infarction? Anyone from the group? Yes, Mr. Bunao? Yes, it is a heart attack. So, myocardial infarction is most commonly known as heart attack. It is a medical condition that happens when blood flow is abruptly cut off of the portion of the heart muscle and causes or resulting in tissue damage or even death. It is brought on by a blockage of or usually a blood clot in one or more of the coronary arteries that feed blood to the heart muscle, not by an infection. Next is the coronary artery disease. A disorder is distinguished by atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a build-up of cholesterol and other substances called plaque on the inner walls of the coronary arteries is the primary cause of the myocardial infarction. So next is the structure of pathogen. Autophagy, a vital procedure that eliminates pathogenic microbes and damaged mitochondria, thus suppressing the inflammatory response and regulating the inflammatory microenvironment. So now let's move on to the reported cases of myocardial infarction. The latest available data that I have researched is from January to September 2023. Heart disease, including myocardial infarction, remains the top cause death in the Philippines. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, heart disease continued to be the leading cause of death in our country. The reported cases that I have researched, ischemic heart disease includes myocardial infarction. It is the primary cause of deaths in the Philippines during that period. So now let's move on to the transmission of myocardial infarction. Myocardial infarction cannot be spread by person to person because it is not a communicable illness or communicable disease. Internal factors such as the accumulation of plaque in the coronary arteries are the reason. The myocardial infarction is not caused by pathogens. It is transported through coronary artery obstruction, which can frequently brought by the atherosclerosis, which I have discussed earlier. Now let's move on to the symptoms and diagnosis. A heart attack might cause a discomfort or pain in the arms, in the back, neck, jaw, and stomach, in addition to the shortness of breath, nausea, lightheadedness, and cold sweats. Blood tests and electrocardiograms or ECGs are most commonly used in the diagnosis process. So next is the treatment and prevention. Medication, dietary adjustment, and even surgical procedure like bypass or angioplasty can all be part of treatment plan. Keeping a healthy weight, stop smoking, controlling the blood pressure, cholesterol, and exercise are all the example of the prevention techniques. So next is before the result. For example, is a person may experience warning signs or symptoms prior to a heart attack, but they were unaware of it. And the next one is the after the result. A heart attack, it is important to avoid having another heart attack because it is critical to control the risk factors and follow doctor's orders once one has occurred. So please be mindful of what you take and what you do, especially now that is the weather is very hot. So next one is available vaccination. As for the myocardial infarction, there is no vaccine. Controlling risk factors and maintaining a healthy life are the greatest form of prevention. That's all. Thank you.
Rheumatic fever is an inflammatory disease that can develop as a complication of inadequately treated strep throat or scarlet fever. It primarily affects children between the ages of 5 and 15, although it can occur at any age. The condition is a result of an autoimmune response to group A streptococcus infection, where the body immune system mistakenly attacks its own tissues. The structure of the pathogen involved in rheumatic fever is the group A streptococcus bacteria, which have a cell wall composed of M proteins that can trigger an immune response in the host. The global heart burden of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease remains significant, with an estimated 470,000 new cases of acute rheumatic fever per year, of which is 60% may lead to rheumatic heart disease. The mode of transmission for rheumatic fever itself is not direct. Rather, it is the strep throat or scarlet fever that is contagious and can spread through respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Symptoms and diagnosis of rheumatic fever. Fever, painful and tender joints, often in the knees, ankles, elbows, and wrists. Chest pain, fatigue, fast heart rate, and palpitations. Multiple joints inflammations. Diagnosis is based on medical history, physical exam, and tests like antibody test, electrocardiogram, and echocardiogram. Treatment and prevention of rheumatic fever. Antibiotics to clear the streptococcal bacteria. NSAIDs to reduce inflammation. Anticonvulsants to manage psychosis or anxiety attacks. The best prevention is to treat strep throat or scarlet fever promptly with the full course of recommended antibiotics. For the result of rheumatic fever, It's typically caused by an untreated or inadequate treated strep throat or scarlet fever. The initial symptoms may include fever, painful and tender joints, chest pain, fatigue, fast heart rate, and palpitations. After the result, if left untreated, rheumatic fever can lead to serious complications such as valve stenosis, which is the narrowing of heart valves, valve regurgitation, damage to the heart muscle, irregular heart rhythms, and heart failure. The treatment focuses on eliminating the bacteria with antibiotics, relieving symptoms with anti-inflammatory medications, and preventing recurrence. The long-term effects mainly involve the heart and joints, potentially leading to rheumatic heart disease, which increases the risk of stroke, pulmonary hypertension, and heart failure. And there is no specific vaccination available for rheumatic fever. Pericardial disease refers to a range of conditions that affect the pericardium, which is the thin sac-like membrane surrounding the heart. The most common form of pericardial disease is pericarditis, which is the inflammation of the pericardium. The structure of pathogens involved in pericardial disease can vary, as pericarditis, the most common form of pericardial disease, can be caused by a variety of infection agents, including virus, bacteria, and fungi. In virus, they are typically small, with a simple structure consisting of genetic material enclosed in a protein coat and sometimes in lipid envelope. In bacteria, these are larger than viruses and have more complex structure with a cell wall, cell membrane, and in some cases a capsule. They may also have appendage like flagella or pili for movement and attachment. In fungi can be unicellular or multicellular and have a complex cell structure with a rigid cell wall made of chitin. The latest information on reported cases of pericardial disease in 2024 indicates that there have been updates in studies on the incidence, risk factors, and mechanisms of myocarditis and pericarditis, particularly in related to COVID-19 vaccination. The context of pericardial disease typically refers to the spread or communication of disease-causing agents or influence. Causes of pericardial disease, which is viral, bacterial, fungal, or parasitic infection. Certain drugs, including blood thinners or anti-seizure medication, can cause pericarditis. Symptoms and diagnosis of pericardial disease. Shortness of breath when reclining, heart palpitations, low-grade fever, weakness and fatigue, cough and abdominal or leg swelling. The diagnosis of pericardial disease typically involves medical history and physical examination including listening for a specific sound called a pericardial rub. Imaging tests such as electrocardiogram, X-ray, echocardiogram, and MRI to look for fluid accumulation. Treatment and prevention for pericardial disease. Common medications include anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or naproxen to reduce pain and inflammation. In some cases, colchicine is used, especially to prevent recurrence, and corticosteroids like prednisone may be required for recurring pericarditis. If a bacterial infection is the cause, antibiotics will be prescribed. Pericardiocentesis may be performed to drain excess fluid from the pericardium. In several cases of consecutive pericarditis, a pericardiectomy, the removal of the entire pericardium, may be necessary. While acute pericarditis cannot be prevented, steps can be taken to reduce the risk of recurrence or chronic pericarditis. This includes prompt treatment, adherence to the treatment plan, and regular medical care. Lifestyle adjustments such as avoiding strenuous activity during recovery are also recommended. Before pericardial disease, the pericardium is a thin two-layered sac that separates the heart from surrounding structures. It normally contains up to 50 millimeters of fluid, allowing the heart to beat without friction. After the result in acute pericarditis, this is an inflammation of the pericardium, which can cause chest pain, a pericardial friction rub, ECG changes, and sometimes a pericardial effusion. In pericardial effusion, accumulation or excess fluid in the pericardial cavity, which can lead to pressure on the heart. According to the National Library of Medicine case report, they presented pericarditis as the primary representation of COVID-19 among a young, healthy individual with no medical background. In the absence of conventional respiratory signs, the diagnosis was based on a set of clinical, biological, radiological, and electrocardiographic findings. In this case, the treatment was based on the use of colchicine in addition to COVID-19 treatment. The outcome was favorable with a noticeable regression of symptoms and the disappearance of pericardial effusion within 2 weeks. The mode of transmission depends on the specific pathogen involved. Viral pericarditis is often transmitted through respiratory droplets or direct contact with infected individuals. Bacterial pericarditis may result from the spread of bacteria from another site of infection, such as pneumonia or skin wound, or through blood-borne transmission. Fungal pericarditis typically occurs through inhalation of fungal spores or dissemination from another infected site in the body. Causes of pericarditis. Viruses, which is the viral infection, are the most common cause of pericarditis. In bacteria, bacterial infections, although less common, can cause pericarditis. In fungi, are rare and typically occurs in individuals with compromised immune system.
Hi, I am Joyce Dongdong. I will continue the discussion of arteriosclerosis. So what is arteriosclerosis? It is developed slowly as cholesterol, fat, blood cells, and other substances in your blood from plaque. So, pag yung plaque ay nagsama-sama na it causes your arteries to the narrow. So, this reduces the supply of oxygen-rich blood to tissues of the vital. So, what is oxygen-rich blood? Ito yung red blood cells natin. Or the scientific name is the oxygen-rich blood. So, let's move on to the structure of pathogen. So, we have 5 structure of pathogen. The first one is Chlamydia pneumoniae. So, it is demonstrated in atherosclerotic lesions of the coronary artery and the arteries. It is a type of a bacteria that causes respiratory tract infections. So, or the lung function. So, nagdudulot ito ng sakit sa pamamagitan ng pagkasira sa lining respiratory tract of the ating lalamunan. So, let's move on to the second structure of pathogen. Porphyromonas gingivalis. So, what is Porphyromonas gingivalis? So, it is the one of the most common bacteria in the ethimopathology. It is usually discovered in atherosclerotic plaque in a patient. So let's move on to the third structure of pathogen. The third one is the Helicobacteria pylori. So what is the Helicobacteria pylori? It is the induced inflammatory cascade plays an active role in arteriosclerosis. So nagme-metabolize naman siya ng area na gumagawa ng ammonia para ma-neutralize niya lahat ng microenvironment at kung saan naninirahan ang bacteria. And the fourth one is the cytomegalovirus. So what is the cytomegalovirus? It is often associated with atherosclerosis and its clinical expressions such as coronary heart disease. So, ang mga taong mayroong mahinang immune system na nakakakuha, kaya sila nakakakuha kasi meron silang mahinang immune system. Yun yung tinatawag na cytomegalovirus or nagkakaroon ng sintomas na makakaapekto sa mga mata, baga, atay at esophagus at iba pa. And let's move on to the last structure of pathogen. It's what we call the influenza A virus. So it is essential for cytoplasmic trafficking of viral ribonucleoproteins, or what we call VRNPs, and the assemble of the IAV virus. So let's move on to the reported cases of arteriosclerosis. So arteriosclerosis is a chronic inflammatory disease of the arteries, and it is the underlying causes of about 50% of all deaths in the westernized society. So karamihan naman na nagkakaroon nito ay sa mga gawing taga-kanluran. Umaabot na to sa higit na kumulang na 50% of the westernized society. Then let's move on to the transmission of arteriosclerosis. The transmission of arteriosclerosis is the susceptibility may be transmitted by transplantation of the gut microbiota. So what is the gut microbiota? It is nagpo-produce siya ng variety of vitamins, synthesis sa lahat ng essential and non-essential amino acids, and nag-carry out siya ng transformation of the bile. So, let's move on to the causes of arteriosclerosis. So, the causes of arteriosclerosis is the thickening or hardening of the arteries caused by a build-up of plaque in the inner of lining of an artery. So, pagiging malapot o paninigas ng mga arteries caused by a build-up of plaque in the inner lining of our artery. So, mayroon tayong risk factor na included yung high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, and diabetes, pagkain ng mga saturated fat. So, mostly, sa lahat ng nagkakaroon ng arteriosclerosis ay mahilig sila sa mga saturated fat or sa mga naninigarilyo, and nagkakaroon sila ng high cholesterol and high blood kasi sa pamamagitan ng pagkain nila ng mga saturated fat. And let's move on to the symptoms and diagnosis of arteriosclerosis. So the symptoms of the arteriosclerosis is to depend on which arteries is affected and how much blood flow in a block. So, depende naman ito sa mga kung anong arteries ang apektado at kung gaano karaming daloy ng dugo ang nakaharang sa ating arteries. So, ang symptoms nito ay nagkakaroon tayo ng chest pain or the pananakit ng dibdib, and the heart palpitations or yung feeling mo is pagod ka at naghahabol ka ng hininga, or the shortest of breath. So let's move on to the treatment and prevention of arteriosclerosis. The first one is the angioplasty. So angioplasty is the procedure used to open blocked coronary arteries caused by coronary artery disease. So it is the isang way na ginagamit para buksan ang mga nakablock na coronary arteries na dulot ng coronary artery disease. So the second one is the atherectomy. So what is atherectomy? The atherectomy is the procedure to remove plaque from an artery or the blood vessel and restore blood flow to the heart. So isang way naman ito para alisin ang mga plaque from an artery or ang daluyan ng dugo and to restore the blood flow to the heart. And the third one is the carotid endarterectomy. It is the surgery performed to remove plaque buildup in the common carotid and internal carotid arteries and improve blood flow. So, it is a surgery na gumagawa upang alisin ang mga plaque na naipon sa mga common carotid and internal carotid. So, the last one is the prevention, a healthy diet or pagbaba ng timbang, being physical active at hindi paninigarilyo para maiwasan ang sakit na arteriosclerosis. So let's move on to the before and after of the arteriosclerosis. Involves the granular buildup and plaque inside the arteries consisting of fat, cholesterol, and other substances. This buildup limits blood flow within the arteries. So it is the risk factor. The several risk factor is continue the development of arteriosclerosis, including the blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, or the essential cholesterol of the high levels. So let's move on to the before the result. It is the symptoms of arteriosclerosis may not present noticeable symptoms until the complications such as a heart attack or a stroke occur. And let's move on to the after the result. So we have two complications and the diagnosis and treatment. So the arteriosclerosis can lead to severe complications such as heart attacks, strokes, and peripheral artery disease. So the diagnosis and treatments, can be diagnosed through various tests, including cardiac catheterization and the Doppler ultrasounds and the magnetic resonance angiography and the cardiac angiogram. So let's move on to the last part, the available vaccination. So it has shown promising avenues for potentially preventing and mitigating the progression of the disease. So however, there are still challenges and unknown that need to be addressed, and further clinical trials and research are necessary to determine the efficiency and the safety of vaccination of a preventive measure for the arteriosclerosis. So that's all for today. I will call my other group to discuss the next topic. Thank you.